Hello, my name is CJ McKenna, and I was once in a band called the Sensitive Nachos. And I thought it would be interesting to do album commentaries of all of our records. It's very random, but last month was the 10th year anniversary of the Sensitive Nachos, and it kind of got me thinking about the time period. And lately, I've kind of been reflecting on all the music that I've been a part of in my life so far. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about each and every record. So I thought, why not start off with the first album I ever made in my life, Under the Influence? So, as for a little bit of background on the band, we were a duo. The other member of the band was, of course, Thomas Bjorkstrand, the genius behind the Nachos. And we lasted from April 2014 to May 2015, when we were in ninth grade and then 10th grade. So, yeah, this band we were really young in, and we kind of played like rap slash pop punk slash alternative weird music. I don't even really know how to describe our music, but there's definitely a lot of different sounds going on some of these records at least. And honestly, Thomas is the one who should be doing these album commentaries because, like I said, he really was the genius behind the Nachos. But I don't really think he'd ever sit down and talk about his records. And also, I'd like to think that I have a pretty good memory. So, I'm going to share some of my memories of this band because I think this kind of stuff is interesting. I feel like artists don't really talk about their records enough. I'm always interested in the creative side of things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So I guess I should start this off by talking a little bit about what we were doing before the Sensitive Nachos. So, Thomas and I, we really became friends towards the end of 8th grade. We shared a very similar taste in music, and we were just kind of weird, awkward kids, and I think we gravitated towards each other in many ways, even though we were also very different from each other. And, we were in a band called My Age Destruction together before the Sensitive Nachos, and I use the term band very loosely because, that band, quote unquote, had so many different lineup changes, and we weren't even really a band. Like, we never practiced. One of the members didn't even have the instrument that he was credited to be playing. It was just a classic middle school band where it's like, you guys aren't actually a band, but it's just cool to say that you're in a band and talk about it. But yeah, My Age Destruction really wasn't a band. It was pretty much just Thomas writing songs alone in his room on his acoustic guitar. But eventually that band kind of started to become a band because we recruited a guitarist named Ronnie Cooper, who was actually a really great metal guitarist, but he was also into very different music than we were. But he was very talented nonetheless, and Thomas and him actually had a guitar class together, and they would just like write songs in that guitar class. And honestly, I had nothing to do with My Age Destruction. Like, I was technically in that band playing bass, but like we never practiced, so like I wasn't really in that band. It wasn't even a band. It's kind of one of those things. But I bring up My Age Destruction because even at such a young age, it was clear just how talented Thomas was and just how naturally gifted he was. Just an amazing singer, an amazing guitar player, an amazing songwriter too. And he was just so creative. And eventually, when the Sensitive Nachos started, it was the perfect outlet for his creativity. So let's get to it. The Sensitive Nachos started on April 4th, 2014 in Newport Richey, Florida at River Ridge High School. Yeah, that's where we both went. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We were sitting in the freshman courtyard on one of the squares, waiting for the bell to ring in the morning before school. And Thomas hands me an earbud. He says, "Check this out." And he starts playing me this rap beat that he made on the mobile app GarageBand on his phone. And for those who don't know, GarageBand is essentially a DAW where you can record audio, you can record songs, you can make beats, you can mess around with the MIDI instruments. And Thomas had apparently just discovered the mobile app, and like I was saying, he was playing me this hip-hop beat that he had just made, and I jokingly started rapping over it. And I think the wheels started spinning a little bit in his head. And later on in the day, during our lunch period together, which is actually the only time we ever had a lunch period together, was ninth grade. But anyway, I then saw him open up the GarageBand app on his phone, and then he proceeded to pull out a notebook from one of his classes and turn to a fresh page. And he pretty much said, "We're writing a song." So we started writing this song together over the beat that he had showed me earlier, and we had so much fun. And that song was actually called "Eat My Stupid Kid's Baseball Bat, Sucka," and it's actually the second song on this album. So pretty much the Sensitive Nachos were born then and there. We had so much fun writing this random ass song that we wanted to keep doing it. and Thomas would make more beats, and we would continue to write more lyrics. And that's pretty much how this album came to be. It was very spontaneous and random. We spent 2 weeks just writing songs, and it was just such a fun 2 weeks. I remember just loving every second of it. And I want to talk about every single song on this album, but before I get into that, I kind of just want to talk about the songwriting process, because it was a lot different than our other records. Mostly because it was the only time we were ever in the same room writing these songs. But I will say that I would say like 90% of the songs were all Thomas. He was the genius behind the Nachos. He made all the beats, with the exception of the last song. I'm responsible for that sad catastrophe. I'm sorry. But yeah, and he wrote most of the lyrics too. And I want to just talk a little bit about that process right now. So how we made songs in this album was essentially Thomas would usually bring in a beat that he had worked on. Sometimes he'd actually be writing it at the lunch table in our cafeteria. But either way, he would always pull out a notepad, the old paper and pen, and we would just kind of brainstorm lyrics together. Thomas was always the one with the paper and the pen, and I remember he would like write down lyrics. He was always so in the zone. And sometimes I would, recommend a line. I would come up with one, and I'd, just say it out loud, and he would never acknowledge if it was good or not. But if I saw him write it down, then I was like, I guess it was good. Because he was just so in the zone. I'll never forget that. Because he would never acknowledge what I was saying. He would just, he would either like a line or he wouldn't. He would either write it down or he wouldn't. And the lyrics on this album in particular are just so random. I'll recite some of them when I'm actually talking about the individual songs, but that's the theme of this album. It's just so bizarre. The lyrics are ridiculous, but I find most of them hilarious. There was a lot of fuck your mom type humor. That humor was never my style. That was all Thomas. I was never really into that kind of humor, but I always really loved just the bizarre random humor. And this album is filled with just wacky lines that make no sense, but they're kind of almost oddly poetic at times too. And I'll never forget the feeling of coming up with a really random line and seeing Thomas actually write it down, meaning my line made the song. Because it didn't really happen often, but every once in a while, he would actually write one down. And some of the times I would say a line and he would reword it. Again, he would never acknowledge me. He would just reword it himself, or he'd write it down himself. And another thing that I really remember about this time period is that he would always insist on having more lyrics and to never repeat verse lyrics. I think a lot of the times I just wanted to get to recording, so I would just be like, why don't we just use the same lyrics as the first verse? Kind of like the Ramones, second verse, same as the first kind of deal. But he was always strongly against that. He would always say, no, we need more lyrics. We need new lyrics for the next verse. And looking back on it, he was completely right about that, and I'm really glad that he stood his ground on that subject. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the recording process of this album, which is a little bit different than the records we would go on to make. So let me just start off by saying that we knew nothing about recording, nothing about mixing, nothing about anything, really. The majority of these songs were actually recorded live in one take at the River Ridge High School cafeteria during our lunch period. Now, I know what you're thinking. What do you mean live in the cafeteria? Were you guys performing on a stage in front of everybody live? The answer is hell no. There was no stage, there was no performances there, and nobody would have wanted to see that. How these songs were recorded is, Thomas and I sat at what I called the loser table, which was located all the way in the back towards the cafeteria line. And I call it the loser table because all of the misfits sat there. The smelly kids, the goth kids, the weirdos. It was just all the weird motherfuckers sat there. So of course we fit right in. And, a couple of the other people who sat there included Justin Tongle of Defective fame, who was a Carpet Shoes Records recording artist, as well as this guy named Jackson. And I think Jackson is actually mentioned on the record in My Foot Is Stuck in a Boot. And I also remember Storm Summers sat at that table as well, who was referenced in the song HBS, which is on another EP of ours. But yeah, it was pretty much just this table filled with, weird kids who didn't really belong. And Thomas and I would sit at this table, and I remember nobody really bothered us. We would just sit there and work on our songs. And how we would record is, we would, first write the lyrics, and then we would do practice runs of the song, where we would, come up with our vocal melodies and vocal parts. And for this record, whoever sings the vocal part or the vocal melody is whoever wrote it. So, a lot of the great choruses were written by Thomas because he sings them. And the backing vocals were all written by me, actually, the ones that I sing at least. So yeah, it was just a really fun time of like writing a song, then kind of going through it a few times, and then we would press record. And no, we didn't have any microphones. What we used was just Thomas's iPhone. Each of us would grab one of his earbuds, we'd put it in, and then we'd just sing around this iPhone. We would lay it down on the cafeteria table, and we would just do our parts into the iPhone microphone. And for some reason, we insisted on doing all the songs in just one take. I think that's mostly because we didn't really know any better. Like, we didn't really know that we could, like, splice tracks and record, two different vocal tracks. Everything was just done on one vocal track. It's pretty bizarre looking back in it. So, essentially, we would have to get the song right, or else we would redo it. But a lot of times, we didn't even get it right. We would just get so tired of trying to get it perfect that we would just keep the messed up take because it was more funny. That's why in some of these songs, you can hear us saying, like, we're not redoing this. Because, yeah, like, it was just one take, it's pretty crazy. But that really gave me such a rush back in those days because it was just so exciting. Like, wow, just one take to get it right, and then the song is done forever. And it's also worth noting that this is actually the only record that we use the iPhone microphone to record with. Eventually, Thomas would get a pair of earbuds that came with a microphone on the earbud, so we would have to like switch earbuds to whoever was recording. But for this one, we just used, the iPhone microphone, and that's why you can hear all the background noise of all the kids being loud in the cafeteria, which to me actually adds a certain charm to it, and it actually makes it sound like we're performing live, like even though we were just singing to ourselves. But let me tell you, there were some people who would get pretty annoyed with us because we were really loud, especially me. Like, I would just love to like scream into the microphone, and I didn't give two shits. Like, I like got off on it. I remember the popular girls giving us dirty looks and stuff like that. But I loved every second of it. I just loved being loud. Music was my passion, and I finally got to express myself in that way, it felt. And I remember Thomas actually being a bit more shy about things, which was really weird because otherwise he was such an outgoing kid. He loved to like serenade everybody with his guitar. He would take a guitar from the guitar class and he would sing songs about fucking moms or like eating cupcakes, just like really random subject matter. And I remember one time he won over an entire football team. They just loved every word that he was singing. They found it so funny. But for some reason, when he was recording these songs, he was a little bit more shy. And I think you can hear on, some of these songs that were recorded in the cafeteria how shy he was, because he's kind of like whisper singing. And of course, some of these songs were actually recorded at his house by himself. And then there was one that I recorded at my house by myself. But we'll get into those when we start talking about individual tracks. I just wanted to give that little visual of what it was like to record this album first. And one little tidbit that I really quickly want to mention is that on this album in particular, there's hip-hop songs and then there's like punk songs. But I remember when the band first started, I had this dream, this vision, that each one of our songs will be a completely different genre. And for some reason, like I wanted like us to have our one hip-hop song, our one punk song, our one country song, our one techno song. That was my vision for the band, but I don't know, Thomas wasn't really feeling that vision, and I think we just settled on writing like hip-hop punk songs for this record. So yeah, for 2 weeks we wrote this album, and I loved every second of it. I remember, we would finish a song, and then Thomas would send me a link to the song on Reverb Nation, and I couldn't wait to hear it when we finished it. I remember just like being so proud of some of these songs. Like I would listen to them and I would think like, whoa, that's me singing. Like it was just such a cool feeling because I found like I finally found my voice on this album because, like I always liked singing, but, for my own songs, I would pretty much just be whispering in my room because I didn't want my parents hearing me. But, when I was recording these songs in a cafeteria, I got to be loud and I really got to hear and find my voice. And I gotta say, like, I really like my voice on this album, especially when I'm singing kind of rough. I'm the one who sings a little bit more rougher on this album. And I don't know, I just like my voice. I think it's actually probably the best that I sounded in the band is on this album for some reason. I also really like the way our vocals just sound sonically. And again, I think that has to do with us using the iPhone built-in microphone instead of that built-in earbud microphone that we would go on to use. For some reason, I think this album just sounds a little bit better than some of our other work, which is weird because it's the one that came first. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, this record sounds pretty bad, it's so amateur, but I think it's probably our best sounding album out of the ones we made. Anyway, as for the band name, the Sensitive Nachos, I actually came up with that, which is actually said in one of my verses on a song off this record. But yeah, I remember for some reason Thomas had asked me like, "Oh, we need a band name. We need a band name. Do you have any ideas?" And I sent him a list of like band names that I had. I don't remember any of them except for one, the one that made it, the Sensitive Nachos. Yeah, Thomas just instantly loved that one, and I still like it too. I think it's actually one of our better band names. I mean, we've been in so many bands together, but it's pretty memorable to me at least. But yeah, I remember coming up with that band name while on my dad's boat. My dad always really liked boating, and yeah, and I was staring out at the beautiful waters, staring at the sun. It was really hot outside. I think I was like eating Doritos or maybe like nachos, Tostitos, something like that. And I was thinking about, like how I'm kind of a sensitive guy. And then I looked down and saw, either Doritos or nachos. And I put the two together, the Sensitive Nachos. And I remember writing it down, like on my phone, like maybe that'll come in handy someday. And when Thomas asked me for band names, I was like, the Sensitive Nachos. So yeah, I came up with the name. And that was that. And early on, we both decided that we needed cool rapper names. So Thomas actually came up with both of ours. So he christened himself as T. Hamas, and he gave me my name of Colby Jack. I think Colby Jack is pretty self-explanatory because my initials are CJ, and CJ could stand for Colby Jack. And it also worked because, Colby Jack is a cheese, which you can put on your nachos. Wow, full circle. And another thing I remember is that when we finally had the band name, I felt really bad about My Age Destruction because technically we were still a band at that point. And I felt so bad for Ronnie Cooper, and the other member of the band was a guy named Dan, because it felt like we had just kind of left them in the dust to start this new project, just Thomas and I. But I soon realized that, like those guys, they don't care, My Age Destruction wasn't even a real band, there was nothing to feel bad about, and they were really happy for us. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the release of the album. So eventually, Thomas decided that we had enough songs. 2 weeks had passed, and he was like, okay, we have a record that we can put out. And I remember being a little bit taken back by it because I was just having so much fun. Like, I didn't want the recording to stop because it was such a blast to me. But also being really excited to hear all the songs in order. So yeah, Thomas actually sequenced this album, and I actually really like the sequencing, with the exception of one fatal flaw. I don't like how I'm Gonna Nuke the Memories and In the Winter are back to back with each other. Those are two songs on the album that are just Thomas, and I don't know, I just don't like that choice. Because it just makes I'm Gonna Nuke the Memory seem very long. I mean, that is kind of a long song. It's actually the longest song on the album, which I feel like that song could have been more compact, but I'll talk about that once we get to the song. It just seems like too much Thomas in that one little area to me. Too much Thomas is never a bad thing, but I don't know. I just feel like those two songs should have been spread out a little bit more. And the album title, Under the Influence, was actually Thomas's idea as well. And no, it's not because we were under the influence. Believe it or not, Thomas was actually a straight edge kid back in those days. I always stuck with it, but he eventually got into smoking and stuff like that. But yeah, the Under the Influence title pretty much comes from something that he told me. He was like, I feel like people would have thought that we were under the influence while recording this album, so Under the Influence is the perfect title. And yeah, I mean, I like that idea because it's pretty true. I mean, this album is just so trippy lyrically that like I could see where he's coming from with that. And it's a funny title, even though it's not accurate. And as for the artwork, I am responsible for that catastrophe. Yeah, I created it on Microsoft Paint using my old HP laptop. And the artwork digitally was actually inspired by the physical version of the artwork. I guess I'll segue into that right now. So yeah, when we first were, releasing this album digitally, I decided to make a physical version on CD. And, what I would do back in those days, I would do this for, my solo project, Pootie. I would create like little demos, and then I would make CD copies of them and give them to my dad and stuff like that. So I decided to do that for this record, and I created a CD copy of Under the Influence, where pretty much I would cut out little inserts, back insert, the tray insert, and I would draw the album artwork and the back cover using pencils and colored pencils, and then I would put the CD together, obviously burn the songs onto a disc, and I would create like a physical version of the CD all hand drawn. And I remember bringing one into Thomas one day, and he just absolutely loved it. He's like, we need a bunch of these. We're going to give these out to every one of our friends. And that also birthed the expansion of Carpet Shoes Records, which was a label that I started in 2013 by myself. But when Thomas saw that I wrote that on the label, he decided to actually make it a digital label, and that's when Carpet Shoes Records expanded, and he got involved with that. So yeah, that's kind of how the original artwork was made. Now, the original artwork was way better on the physical version, but I was pressed for time when doing the digital version that appears on streaming services everywhere. Now, if you guys want to actually see a physical copy of the old CD, there's pictures of it on the Sensitive Nachos website, but they're very low quality pictures because I don't even have a copy. 7 copies were made of the physical CD, and they were each given out to our friends for free, although Roger Wolcott, who was one of our best friends, gave us $10 for the first copy. So yeah, that was very nice of him. But yeah, if you want to see a picture of those and how they came out, it's on the website. Very bad picture, but yeah, I still wonder where the rest of those CDs are at. I always hope to find one at a thrift store or something. But yeah, another thing I remember about that artwork is that they would just take forever to make. I mean, keep in mind that I didn't have a printer or anything like that, so I had to cut out all these inserts by hand. You know, I would have to hand draw everything. It would take like an hour 30 for each one of these CDs. And it really started to annoy me because Thomas would like be demanding more CDs. He's like, we need more, we need more. But they would take me so long to make, and they were so hard to make. So we only ever ended up with 7 of them made. But yeah, I remember, you know, making these CDs and listening to the Alkaline Trio a lot because I had just gotten into them. And yeah, I would pretty much listen to a new Alkaline Trio record every night while making these CDs. So I'm kind of nostalgic about that, honestly. But yeah, as for the digital version of the artwork, that's a whole other story. Pretty much what happened is that I was on my way to go to a Tampa Bay Rays game with my mom and my sister. And right before I'm about to leave, I get a text from Thomas over Facebook Messenger. And he says, we need artwork. Make artwork. I'm going to be releasing the album on streaming services like Reverb Nation and Bandcamp. We need digital artwork. And I was like, I'm on my way to go to a Rays game. I don't really have time. And he's like, no, quickly make some artwork. And yeah, he pretty much made me make artwork at the last second. And that's why it came out absolutely terrible. So pretty much what I did was, you know, I opened up Microsoft Paint. I chose a colored background that kind of matched the one that I drew on the physical version. And I pretty much just tried to copy what I originally drew on the physical version. But I found it insanely difficult and limiting because obviously I didn't have a drawing tablet. I just used my laptop's mouse, and my hand was so shaky. I knew nothing about art, design. I knew nothing about anything. And what resulted was a terrible amateur mess, which actually perfectly went with the recording of the record because the record is also a amateur mess. So yeah, this album came out on April 17th, 2014, 2 weeks after forming the band, and it was released on sites like Bandcamp and Reverb Nation, as well as a physical CD version exclusive to 7 copies, as I said earlier. That was, you know, the inclusion of putting it on Bandcamp and Reverb Nation was all Thomas. I had not really known about that side of music. He was the one who, you know, showed me all those sites, and I am forever grateful for sure. Because, you know, I love Bandcamp still to this day. I love the platform of it. But yeah, so it came out, and obviously it didn't make a big splash or anything because we were 2 kids who had no fans. We weren't a part of any scenes or anything like that. Although we tried to make friends on Reverb Nation, but I don't really think it went all that well. But yeah, we, you know, just word of mouth. We gave out free copies of our CD at school, and I feel like our friends thought it was kind of cool. Maybe they thought it was kind of cheesy. I don't really know, but either way, people were kind of getting a kick out of the whole thing. And, you know, we were also getting a kick out of the whole thing. It was pretty exciting. It was the first album I ever made in my life, and it was really exciting to me. And it's one that I still have a very special place in my heart for. And I think people might listen to this album and be like, this is just a mess. But to use like a lame analogy, it's kind of like, imagine if you and your friends used to love making like stupid little YouTube videos when you were younger, and like they're almost unwatchable, but you have such a soft spot for them because they were just nostalgic, carefree times. That's kind of what this album is to me. Like ninth grade was the only year of high school I enjoyed, and I think partially because of this album and just how much fun I had making it, even though it only lasted like 2 weeks. But yeah, whenever I listen to this album, it definitely takes me back, and I still laugh at just the sheer ridiculousness of it. And yeah, like I'm proud that this is like the first album I ever made, even though that sounds kind of strange because it's such a mess. But I mean, there's some cool stuff on this album. I will fully admit to that. I think, but I think Thomas, is mostly, responsible for the cool stuff. Anyway, I have been rambling about the backstory of this album for 25 minutes. Wow, I'm talking way too much. Wow, I can't believe I'm still wasting time. Let me just cut right to the chase. Let's go ahead and start talking about the individual songs in the album. I'd like to discuss each one and my memories of them. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the first track on the record, A Guys. Now, A Guys is a opening little intro-lude type song, skit, whatever you really want to call it. It's 9 seconds long. It's just Thomas doing a bunch of ooh vocal takes, layered and layered and layered. Yeah, so it's not really a song, but yeah, this was all Thomas. I had nothing to do with this track. This was all his idea. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I heard it for the first time. When he sent me the whole record, I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool way to start off the album. And Thomas recorded this song in his laundry room. I remember him saying that he did over like 30 takes of him going, ooh. And he was going to ask me to do some, but then he's like, he probably doesn't want to be bothered, which is probably fairly accurate at the time. But yeah. Another thing I have to say about this song is that our good friend Roger Wolcott, who was the first person to buy our CD, he had something kind of funny to say about this song. He was like, come on, guys, the first song is only 9 seconds long. Yeah, I miss Roger. Great guy, great guy. Alright, track 2 on the album is Eat My Stupid Kid's Baseball Bat, Sucka. I've always loved that title. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this was the first Sensitive Nachos song that we worked on, the song that started it all for us. And yeah, I like this one. I think it's kind of interesting. The beat is pretty cool, I gotta say. Thomas, always a master at beat making. And I mean, keep in mind, we had literally just turned 15 when we made this record. It's pretty bizarre how young we sound, and it's also pretty bizarre how good of beats Thomas was making at such a young age. I really like the almost like guitar police siren sound in this song, that kind of screeching thing that sounds kind of droning and interesting. Yeah, cool beat on this song. It's a very short song, but it's like the perfect length. But one different thing about this track is that I do a little bit of a different vocal style on this song as opposed to songs that we would go on to record. I have a bit more of a rougher rap rock vocal style in this one, which I kind of wish that I would have done more back in these days, but I don't really know why I didn't. Instead, I kind of went with a more monotone style for the rest of my rap career in this band. So yeah, I actually start this one off. That's my first verse there. And then Thomas gets the second one. And then Thomas came up with the very melodic chorus. Yeah, I really like this chorus. And that's me shouting the Wells in the background during the chorus. I remember being pretty proud of that at the time. How simple that is. I was just so proud of it. But yeah, this song also always reminded me of like a Linkin Park type like rap rock song, which is weird because neither of us were really Linkin Park fans. I know I definitely wasn't. Maybe Thomas kind of liked them, but I don't really know. So yeah, it always kind of reminded me of that at the time and still does. And another little tidbit I'll say about this one is the last verse that I sing in this song, I could never get on time for some reason. I remember we tried recording this one at least 5 different times, and I kept saying that last line so fast. It's the line about sit back and enjoy the YOLO, because that's the only way to go. You only live once, I was told that by my homie, but every time he sees me, all he wants to do is own me. But I say that last line just so fast, because I don't know why, I just couldn't sing it on time at that time. Like, I had never really rapped before, but I just couldn't sing it. And yeah, again, back then we didn't like splice tracks to try it over. If I messed up, that was it. So yeah, we just settled on the best take that we got, which is kind of a shame because it's so out of time, but it's also kind of funny. And another thing I'll say about the song is the chorus that Thomas sings, which I actually just mentioned, but I don't know why I didn't mention it when I mentioned it previously. But you can hear that Thomas is kind of singing too close to the microphone and that it's kind of cutting during the Here We Go parts. And I just have like a distinct visual of him like huddling around the iPhone microphone on the table and singing his chorus, uh, into this microphone. And I think he was really shy with it, but he kills the chorus. I mean, I love this chorus. Yeah, he was always so good at melody, and this song is no exception. As for the Lil Wayne references and the YOLO references, I think that was just like a part of the time period. Like all the popular kids were Lil Wayne fans, and YOLO was, I guess, still kind of fresh at that point. So I think we were just kind of poking fun of that whole idea of that. Yeah, the lyrics again are very random, but I think there's some cool lines in this song for sure. All right, track 3 is Everybody Kept Screaming Instrumental. Now, this is one of my favorite songs we ever did as a band. I love this song, and I still get such a kick out of this song. Like, this song still makes me laugh to this day. And yeah, I think this song is without a doubt one of our best. I remember Thomas bringing in this beat, and I always really liked this beat. And I remember us working on the lyrics, obviously, in the cafeteria. And this is definitely one of the more collaborative songs that we worked on. I remember a lot of these lines are actually mine as well. Yeah, and it was also a very spontaneous song where I don't really remember us like going through it many times. Like I feel like the take that is on the record is probably like our second time going through it, and that a lot of the parts were straight up just improvised. Especially towards the end, where Thomas kind of goes on a journey of randomness. Yeah, but like I remember like this song was just like pretty much all improvised. Like when he says like I really hate them fucking cops, in the background I scream I do. Like that was not written down. And like there's so many little lines towards the end of the song that were just improvised. Like the chicken is good line, another line that was just improvised. Yeah, it was a really exciting song to record. That's me screaming instrumental throughout the song. There's a part where I'm screaming instrumental, and then Thomas like awkwardly follows really fast, where it's like instrumental, instrumental. Usually he's not the one who's kind of out of time like that, but that time he was, and I still get a kick out of that because it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, also a reference to Devo in the song. I don't really know why. Neither of us were gigantic Devo fans. I mean, I think we both like Devo, but yeah, I don't really know where that comes from. The Bosco Sticks line, that was a food that was sold at the cafeteria. Bosco Sticks. What are those? It was like a breadstick with cheese in it that they fed the kids. So that was something that we would get often. And chicken patties was obviously another food that the cafeteria would sell. So yeah, a lot of references to food on this song. Just another day of eating lunch in the cafeteria, coming up with random ass words. Even the concept of the song, Everybody Kept Screaming Instrumental, is so, like, it doesn't make any sense. Why is the song called that? But it's not even an instrumental. But that was the funny thing about it to us. Another thing that I love about this song is the ending. So that's me doing that scream at the end, and you can hear Thomas just cracking up. That part always makes me smile. Because I don't know, we were just trying to make each other laugh, and like that was like the perfect example of it. Yeah, this song takes me back. Yeah, it was one of the earlier songs that we recorded on the record, and it's still one of my all-time faves. Oh yeah, and the line, that guy staring, like what the fuck. Another visual I have is there was actually a guy staring at us, and when Thomas said that line, which was improvised, he pointed at the guy and said the line. But obviously the guy didn't hear him because the guy was far away and Thomas was like whispering. But yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. All right, track 4. I dated a mirage in a garage. What does that mean? I have no idea. But yeah, this was like our first punk song that we tried. But all the instruments were just GarageBand instruments, so this is not us playing guitar. It's not me playing bass. It's all from GarageBand. The drums were programmed by Thomas. All the instruments were programmed by Thomas. I remember him, when he made punk songs, I remember him like tapping the keys to change chords. And I gotta say, like, I really like the way the GarageBand instruments sound on these punk songs. I like the guitar tone a lot, and that bass tone is awesome. And I love the how the bass is just thumping. It's like bump, 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 bump. Great bass tone. Yeah. And this is interesting because really this is the only record where we would do punk songs like that. Eventually, Thomas would just start playing the guitar himself, and he'd get me to play bass. So we didn't really do the GarageBand instruments anymore after this record. But I'm glad we did it on this record because I really like the way these ones sound. But yeah, I did it in Mirage in the Garage, our first punk song. The title was actually written by Thomas and two of our friends, Robert Platt and Dakota Turner. So I actually wasn't there when they wrote the title of this song. I think they were all in like a history class together or something like that. So if you ever wondered why Dakota Turner and Robert Platt have writing credits on this song, it's because they helped come up with the title. I don't really know the conversation they were having. I wasn't there. I don't even know. I don't know. But all I know is I always liked giving random people writing credits just because I thought it looked cool on the Bandcamp and in the credits section. So, yeah, nice little ode to Dakota Turner and Robert Platt, wherever they are right now. But yeah, lyrically, this song I had nothing to do with. I didn't write a single lyric. Again, they were already written by the time he brought them to lunch. So in this song, both Thomas and I sing a verse. He sings the first verse with me doing backing vocals, and then I sing the second one with him doing backing vocals. And the one thing I'll say about this is that during his verse, that was like my first time really attempting harmonies, or at least one of my first times, which I didn't even know that they were called harmonies at the time. I just referred to them as backing vocals because I liked when Mike Dirnt did them on the Green Day albums. So yeah, that's me saying Mexican, killing Americans on his verse. And yeah, which, those lyrics are pretty questionable. They weren't meant to be offensive or anything like that. I mean, I didn't write them, but they were just meant to be like really random. So no stereotyping was going on. It was just like Thomas wasn't thinking of what he was writing. It was just so random. So anyway, another thing I remember is the chorus. That's me doing my best Jeff Ott or Dan Hanaway impression when I say "what" in the backing vocals. And Thomas always made fun of me for doing the "do" backing vocals. Yeah, and the other thing I'll say about this song is that he originally wanted me to say the "fuck you" line. Because the lyrics to the chorus are utterly ridiculous. Don't tell me what to do because I will fuck you. I mean, like, it sounds cool when you're singing it, but if you read it, it's like, what? But yeah, he wanted me to sing the "fuck you" line, and I was really against it because, like, I was a good kid. I didn't want to curse. But eventually, I got over that because eventually we recorded Politics Rhymes with Dicks, where I scream "fuck you" in the song. But yeah, I remember being like really uncomfortable about that at the time because I was a goody two shoes. I didn't want to curse. Innocent little McKenna there. But yeah, and then for my verse, I don't really like my vocals on my verse, but yeah, Thomas wrote my verse, of course, and it references Real Friends tees, which were a band that Thomas really liked. Real Friends, and he actually had a Real Friends t-shirt. I was not a fan of them, but I got to sing the line. Another line I find interesting is the "I saw an old mom over there. He had chocolate milk in his hair." I remember questioning Thomas about that, and he's like, "Yeah, it's cool like that." And he was right. I like that switch up there. Kind of reminds me of like the Basket Case Green Day kind of switch up in that song. But yeah, this is like a kind of a standard little punk song. One thing that I'll say is that this song actually ends with like a cymbal hit, and I added that later on because one thing you'll notice about these songs is that they kind of all stop abruptly. Thomas didn't really know how to like end beats at this time, so he would just like loop them and then he'd just let them cut out. We didn't really know how to fade. We didn't really know how to do anything, like I was saying. So later, I would go into my Mixcraft DAW and I would add the Mixcraft, virtual instrument crash cymbal to end the song on a proper note. So yeah, that was my contribution to the beat, was adding that final cymbal hit in this song. Alright, track 5 is I'm Gonna Nuke the Memories. Now, this song was all Thomas. I had nothing to do with this song. This song's interesting for this record because, unlike the other punk songs in the album, Thomas actually plays guitar on this song, and he recorded it at his house. He recorded this entire song by himself at his house. I had nothing to do with this track. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, wow, that's a really good song. I mean, it is like a really good song for a 15-year-old especially. I like this one. I just think it's a little bit long. That's like my one complaint about it, is because the rest of this record, I really like the arrangements because they're very short and concise. But, this song really isn't long by like normal song standards, but because the rest of the record is so short and concise, it makes it seem like this song is long as hell. So when you listen to the record like front to back, to me, it might be like a little bit repetitive, this one, compared to the other tracks on the record, but I think this is a really cool song either way. So yeah, Thomas pretty much recorded this at his house. He used his little old Line 6 practice amp. He set up his iPhone next to the amp and pressed record. Obviously, the drums were programmed by him on GarageBand. I really like the drum beat on this one. This is another one that ends with a crash cymbal hit that I added in because it ended really awkwardly otherwise. So that's my one contribution to this song again. But yeah, I really like the way this song sounds compared to some of our other rock songs that we would go on to record. I don't know, I think the guitar just sounds better. But the big complaint that pretty much everybody has with this song is that the backing vocals are so painfully loud. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. It just goes to show you just how clueless we were, especially because those backing vocals were recorded on a separate track, so we could have just easily turned them down. But again, we were just so oblivious to it all that the lead vocal is really quiet, but the backing vocal is just so damn loud. It's almost like deafening. It's so loud. And I remember like multiple people like made note of that at the time that we released this record. But yeah, it's just one of those funny things that like you just look back on and it's like, yeah, that we were just clueless idiots. A couple more little tidbits about this song is that our old friend Ronnie Cooper, who we were in My Eyes Destruction with, I remember he heard this song and he was like, he thought that it was me singing the lead vocal and Thomas doing the backings. But no, it's just Thomas on this one. And there's a line in this song that always kind of confused me or rubbed me the wrong way. It's, of memories that has yet to fall. Shouldn't have been have yet to fall? I mean, I'm not an expert on grammar, but I don't know. Something about that. And the last thing I'll say about this track is I really like the title, and I love that note that Thomas holds at the end. I mean, it just goes to show you how good of a singer he was, like, because that's an impressive note. And you know that was just like done in one take. And you might be wondering, why isn't there any bass on this song? Why didn't you record bass? And I don't really know, honestly. Eventually Thomas would, make me record bass on the songs, but at this point, I guess, like, maybe he didn't even think that was like an option. I don't even think we really thought about it. It was one of those things where it's like he just recorded it and we put it on the record, and yeah, that was that. Alright, track 6 is In the Winter, one of my favorites off the album. This is another one that I had absolutely nothing to do with. This was all Thomas. He recorded this at his house. And an interesting fact about this one is that this was actually, technically speaking, the first Sensitive Nachos song. When he first downloaded the GarageBand app on his phone, this was one of his earliest creations. And yeah, this song, it features a very quiet, beautiful acoustic guitar, which is not him playing. That is taken directly from GarageBand. And it also just features, a Thomas vocal. And I've always really liked the lyrics to this song. Like, they're oddly profound, and whenever I would ask him about the lyrics, he would act like, like he didn't really even write them. I think they were just completely improvised, and he was probably just listening to modern baseball and feeling sad, so he just wrote down random sad lyrics. But I don't know, I always thought there was like a deeper meaning to these lyrics. One line that I love is the, actually no, that was a joke. I just sat all alone, in the winter, all alone. I don't know why, but that line has always hit me hard. I think Thomas has always, back in these days especially, he always kind of suffered from disassociation. And in many ways, I have too. And I think that line is just so painfully accurate. And it's funny because, like, I don't even think he really realized what he was writing when he wrote this song. But I always really like this one, and I'm really glad that it's on the record. Short but sweet. I think this is a really pretty song in our catalog for sure. Alright, track 7 is My Foot is Stuck in a Boot. Now, this song is a staple. This song is one of our best, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I words cannot describe this song really. You just have to hear it, honestly. But yeah, this is another punk song. But of course, we are not playing the instruments. They were all GarageBand instruments. And that bass riff kicks ass. I love that bass riff in this song. This song is essentially, the verses are just us, spoken word, us talking, and then the chorus is just us screaming, my foot is stuck in a boot. And you're probably wondering, like, what is this song about? You're probably wondering, like, what was going on while we were recording it. And I remember it like it was yesterday, so I'm here to explain it. So Thomas had a theater class, a drama class, and I guess he was doing some kind of skit that involved him wearing one of the props, which was like a boot. And I kind of vaguely recall the boot being like taped to his ankles. So he came to lunch, and I remember like a bunch of us trying to get this boot off of him, and he kept screaming, "My foot is stuck in a boot." While he was screaming this, he had his, iPhone in his hand, and he was on GarageBand making this instrumental. And he just got the idea to like make a song about his foot being stuck in a boot. And the rest is history, honestly. So yeah, the song starts off with Thomas saying, you got to get it off, you got to get it off. And then he actually points out to a guy sitting at the table, Jackson. He's like, "You better help me, Jackson." And then Jackson says, "Fuck you." And then Thomas kind of replies back to him. Yeah, like I said, like I have this visual of Thomas like looking at other people at the table saying like, "Help me get this boot off," while we were obviously recording. And then me and him both come in for the chorus. That's me doing the more nasally, rougher voice during the chorus. And during the second verse, you can actually hear somebody else at the table singing the chorus. And I was like, "Sing it, sing it." That's also me saying "peace, love, and happiness" towards the end of that second verse. Another like questionable line I have in this song is there's a part in the song where I don't know what I'm saying, but I say something along the lines of "in a boot, Jaylene," or something like that. I don't know what I'm saying, but it could be a reference to there was a girl who went to that school named Jaylene, but I don't think I'm. Why would I be referencing her? I never even spoke to her. I don't know what I'm saying there, but I've always wondered about that. But yeah, I go off on this song. And the thing about it is like I actually sing the majority of this song during the chorus. But I remember one time like we showed our friend Roger this song, and I wasn't really there. I just kind of overheard their conversation. He made a comment. He was like, "Wow, I bet CJ only sung like one line in that song." And I was like, "What?" Like I sing the majority of the song during the chorus because Thomas was too busy having his foot stuck in a boot. So I was actually probably closer to the microphone with my annoying nasally voice. But yeah, I love this song. It brings me back. I get a kick out of it still to this day. And yeah, I have nothing but fond memories of this one. In fact, my senior quote was, "It's been 4 years and my foot is still stuck in a boot." Yes, I made that my senior quote. Really, honestly, just as an ode to Thomas, because he kind of got a kick out of it. But yeah, nobody else understood it. Nobody really cared to. I was a complete loser who nobody talked to, but it was worth it, I think. It was worth it. Alright, track 8 is "Politics Rhymes with Dicks," another one of my all-time favorite songs we ever did. I know I'm saying that about a lot of these songs, but I think this might be my favorite record we ever made. I don't know, I have such fond memories of all these tracks. But yeah, this song I really like. Yeah, this is another punk song on the record. Again, we did not play the instruments, they're all from GarageBand. But I really like the music to this one that Thomas made. And I really just like the vibe of this track. I think it's just a cool punk song. I have a distinct memory of Thomas writing down the title on a piece of paper during the start of our lunch class, and his hand was like covering half the title. All I could see was Polo and then the letter T. So I thought, oh, the title of this song is going to be Polo Tees. But little did I know at the time that at that time, Thomas thought the spelling of politics was Polo, but it's actually Poli. So I thought this song was going to be about polo tees. And when I started, coming up with lyrics to the song and saying them to Thomas, he just gave me the strangest looks because I kept, making references to polo tees. And the line that was mine was, "At least it's better than a country chick," which is very strange because, I would never say the word chick, especially back then, especially now. But I guess at the time there was a lot of country quote-unquote chicks around, and I thought it was funny. It rhymed with the song, and yeah, I don't know why I recommended that line, but Thomas actually wrote it down. But I remember him giving me the strangest look because he was trying to write a serious song about politics, and I said that line, So yeah. But yeah, another thing I'll say about the song is that I really like my backing vocals. This song is pretty much just Thomas singing all the lead vocals, but I do the "they make me sick" and the "fuck you" and all those kind of backing vocals. I came up with that myself, and I was so proud of that at the time. I remember when Thomas sent me a copy of the song after we had finished it, I just kept listening to it over and over and over again. I was so proud of it. I remember trying to show my friend David Ham in gym class, but he just wasn't having it. Yeah, this was one that I loved at the time, and I really like now, still to this day. Proud of this one, still to this day, even though it's a silly song. So yeah, politics rhymes with dicks. Anyway, track 9, Seeing Through the Eyes of a Cupcake. What a title, what a title. This one, it's funny because I actually like this song now, but we like diss the song in the song. If you listen to the song and like our commentary during the parts where we're not rapping, because we're like talking all over this song. But yeah, this one I actually quite like. I think the instrumental is really interesting. I like the guitar in it. It's just a cool instrumental, I think. Thomas did a good job with it. And I also really like the chorus. Another example of Thomas being very melodic. That was his chorus that he came up with on the spot. Always so good at coming up with melodic choruses, especially at that time. Thomas has always been very talented and good at that kind of stuff. But yeah, this song, I like how at the beginning of it, we're like, this is the last time we're going to be recording this. Because we tried to record this song so many times, we just kept messing it up, and I think we were just so sick of it that we just wanted to get it done with. And even like this take isn't even that good that ended up making the record, but I like the little things that we say when we're not actually singing. For example, you can hear me saying, delicious honey buns, and then Thomas says, they're not so delicious. I remember it like it was yesterday because Thomas had, I guess he had like gotten a free honey bun from the cafeteria, or maybe he actually bought it himself. But either way, he just kept going on about how terrible it was. Like, he was so disgusted by this honey bun, which is also referenced at the end of the song, which I'll get to in a little bit. First, I just want to talk about some of the other things we say in this song. There's another moment in this song where I say true dat, which is just something that I have always said throughout my life. But another thing where it's like, nice catch, man. Those goldfish are out of control. Those goldfish are out of control. That's me singing that. And then Thomas says, they're grips, which is another snack that kind of looks similar to goldfish from a distance. But yeah, and then I say, catch it, hot dog, catch it. Hot dog was actually the nickname of a guy named Dylan Hilbert, who was actually on my baseball team the year prior. So yeah, we were just like watching this guy like throw grips into hot dog's mouth from a distance while we were recording this song. And yeah, another little thing that I find really just odd in this song is Thomas makes a comment like, it's probably gonna be the worst song on the album. And I think I say like, yeah, and then he says it one more time. It's probably going to be the worst song on the album. And then I just laugh the second time. I don't know what is up with that because, obviously we recorded everything in one take. I think maybe he just didn't think I heard him. And he didn't hear my response. I don't know, but it's just the weirdest thing. I always, whenever I hear that, I'm just like, what? We were just so strange. And Thomas improvised the whole grunge, yes. Yeah, there's a couple like little tidbits about this song. Like during the last chorus, for some reason, I decide to do a really high, ridiculous harmony of "We forgot to write one," and that was not planned. I just did that, and you can hear Thomas like cracking up that he kind of like forgets the lyrics and kind of forgets to sing the ending of the chorus after I do that ridiculous line. And then he goes into the mumbling, and yeah, I could talk about like everything we say in the song, but that would take forever. As far as some like lyrics that stand out to me, there's a reference to the Pastafarian movement. There's another reference to listening to music on iPod, which I don't really get because Thomas had an iPhone at that time, but I guess we were just trying to be funny. There's a reference to NoFX with The Longest Line. We were both big NoFX fans at the time. I really like the lyrics to this song. I think they like have interesting imagery to them, and they match the very interesting beat. I think this is one of the more interesting beats on the record. I keep saying interesting, but I've been talking for a while now. Give me a break. And the last thing I'll say about this song is the ending, as I made note of earlier. So yeah, Thomas had planned this ending out, but he did not tell me about it. That he purposely cut out the beat early, and he left space so we could just talk. And he was trying so hard to get me to say something. He was like, so what's up with that? So what's up with that? And like, I just wasn't speaking, and I knew that it was pissing him off. And eventually I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And yeah, that song ends with chaos, but he also brings up honey buns at the end. That's why I wanted to mention that as well. So yeah, this is a different song. I don't really know why we dissed it so badly in the song, but I think this is an interesting one on the record for sure. And as for the title, I remember recommending a title that had to do with cupcakes, but it was different than Seeing Through the Eyes of a Cupcake. But after I recommended it, Thomas came up with Seeing Through the Eyes of a Cupcake. So we kind of like, it was another thing where it was like he was inspired by my failed title. But I really like his title for this song. Anyway, track 10 is Snapchat Will Destroy Us All. Another one of my favorite song titles, but it's really a shame how this song has really nothing to do with Snapchat. But who would have like thought that like Snapchat would still be one of the most popular apps to this day? 10 years later that this song was written. But yeah, this is another one of the punk songs. Again, we are not playing the instruments. They were all from GarageBand. But yeah, Thomas pretty much sings all the lead vocals to this song, and I just sing the backing vocals. I also sing the I hate Screamo, I hate Screamo, I hate Screamo, while Thomas is doing his best Screamo impression. Again, this one has some really strange lyrics, especially the line about hobos smoking cheese-flavored meth. Again, I don't know. I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine, as they say. This is another one that I did not write the lyrics to. This was just a sole Thomas credit on this one. Because I look at all these lyrics and I'm like, yeah, I didn't write any of these. None of them sound like me. And I just remember it also at the time that I didn't write any of these ones. But yeah, another thing that I'll say about this song is the ending, where we go into a I guess you can call it like just a vocal arrangement of yeahs, where I say, yeah, 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 and then you hear me say Danny Style. You're probably like, what is Danny Style? Or actually, you're probably wondering, like, what is he even saying? Is he saying Doggy Style or Danny Style? I'm actually saying Danny Style, and that's a reference to one of my favorite bands at the time was Slapstick, and they had a song called Cheat to Win, where they did a very similar vocal melody at the end of that song, where Dan Andriano is singing a bunch of yeahs, and that's where, I got that from. So I wanted to make a little ode to him that I was kind of copying that in this song. So yeah, that's why I say Danny Style. And there's a couple parts in this song that crack me up. One is my improvised vocal harmony during one of the verses where I say, I took her to the prom. That totally caught Thomas off guard, and you can hear him laughing after that. But yeah, and then the other part is when the song ends, and Thomas just can't stop laughing, and we're just both hysterically laughing. And you can hear me say, redo it, redo it, redo it. And Thomas is like, I'm not redoing it. And the beat like ends. That part always makes me crack up. Like, it just brings back such great memories, this song. Yeah, that Snapchat Will Destroy Us All. I don't really have much else to say about it. Alright, it's time for the final track on the album. Song 11. The song said to be horrible, but wasn't. Let me take a deep breath, because I am solely responsible for this terrible creation. I feel like I really need to explain myself with this one. Where should I even begin, honestly? So while we were making this record, Thomas was obviously making all the beats on his phone using GarageBand, and I did not have an iPhone. I had an Android, so I couldn't make beats. And I remember feeling like so left out because I really wanted to make beats, but I didn't have an iPhone, and it was heartbreaking to me. So what I decided to do was I decided to get on my laptop, and I had a free trial of a program called Mixcraft at the time. Mixcraft 5 it was. And I decided to try and make a beat using their virtual instruments on Mixcraft. Now keep in mind, I knew nothing about anything. I didn't know how to loop on there. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to set up a beat. I didn't know anything, literally anything. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to make something on here, just to kind of show that I can make beats too, and maybe I can start making beats if this comes out well. So, what I did was I used all the Mixcraft virtual instruments. I used a French horn, a sax, one of the guitar sounds, just really random sounds. And I would switch whatever instrument I was playing on this DAW, and I would just press, use the keys on the keyboard, and just there was no metronome. I was just pressing the keys, playing little melodies. At the beginning, it starts off with me playing the safety dance, riff. Which I don't know why. Like I always was really into that riff for some reason. Like when I was younger, I used to like beatbox that riff, and I called it the Stingray Shuffle. But that's not really important right now. But yeah, so I created this catastrophe, the instrumental, which really makes no sense at all. Again, there's no sense of rhythm. It's just me hitting random instruments, random keys on my keyboard, and yeah. And then for some stupid reason, I decided to record a vocal take over it, just to show Thomas that hey, like I can kind of make songs too. So I quickly wrote down a bunch of lyrics, and yeah, again, the lyrics actually fit the record really well because they're just random ass lyrics. There is one reference though to something that I guess was happening at that time, which was sea salted fries. I remember I have this distinct memory of like being in the drive-through of Wendy's with my mom. This was back when I ate Wendy's, and there were just advertisements everywhere for their sea salted fries. So yeah, that line made it into the song, but everything else was just completely random. Like Another Day in Egypt, I don't really know where that comes from. That little thing I say about grapes being the size of apes, terrifying yet you escape. It was just it was just completely random stuff. But yeah, so pretty much I wrote down these lyrics all by myself. I wrote all these lyrics. Again, this song was solely my creation in my little bedroom at my mom's house, obviously. And what I proceeded to do was I took out my smartphone, which was an LG My Touch, and I went to the voice memo section and I pressed record on there, and then I pressed play on my Mixcraft DAW, and I decided to rap or sing my lyrics over this catastrophic beat. And of course, I sang way too close to the microphone. But yeah, that's why this song has a very different vocal sound, is because I used my LG My Touch phone to record the vocals to it. And so yeah, so when I finished that voice memo, what I would do is I would send it to my email, and then I would put it into my DAW, Mixcraft DAW, and then I would try to line it up with the beat. So I would either move it forward or back, whatever it was, to try to get it to time up perfectly to how I did when I was recording it. So yeah, another vocal take done in one take. Ridiculousness. Even the way I recorded it is just so strange. Because usually you'd like plug in a microphone into your computer and just record it straight through your DAW so everything matches up perfectly. But for some reason, I guess I didn't have a microphone, so I just used my phone, and then I had to match it up. And yeah. But there's some funny things in the vocal take because you could hear my dog just barking like crazy. Yeah, that was my dog, Girly McKenna, yeah. You can hear her barking all throughout. I mean, words can't really describe how annoying this song is. Like, I think this may be the worst song ever made. Because, some would argue that, like, noise rock songs are the worst songs ever made, or songs that are just complete noise. But this song is, like, it's like technically like a song, but it's so annoying. Like, there's no point in it existing, because like its only point is just to annoy the listener, really, and the mix does not help it at all. I don't know why. Again, why did I mix the vocals so damn loud? They were on a separate track. I could just turn the vocal down, but again, we were just so clueless that the vocal is painfully deafening if you listen to the record. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, this song was just meant to annoy people. The funny thing is that this song wasn't even meant to be a song. I was just gonna send it to Thomas as like, hey, like I have this DAW and there's a couple like unique instruments on it, and maybe we could like try to make beats together, kind of deal. But yeah, my plan did not go the way I wanted it to because Thomas actually ended up liking the song, or not liking it, but I think he got a kick out of just the sheer ridiculousness of it. I think there's actually one part in the song that I actually kind of like. It's like the part where I say, play that sax or French horn, whatever it's called. And that little, like, beautiful riff. I don't know. I was just pressing random keys, but, like, it came out sounding, pretty triumphant, I'd say, during that one little part. And then, obviously, I'm screaming the next second of it and annoying the listener again. But, yeah, this song was never meant to be anything. But Thomas heard it and was like, this is so random and terrible that it has to be the last song on the record. And yeah, I remember when he sent me the record and he put this song as the last song. I was like, what? No, no, no. But he insisted on having it on the album. And yeah, the title was also his title. The song said to be horrible, but it wasn't. I did not come up with it. Obviously, why would I call it that? I think this song is the worst song ever made. But yeah, it's not even a song. I keep calling it a song, but it's not a song. It was a test. Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 testing. Yeah, it's a reference to the song, but yeah, a terrible, terrible song. Not even a song. But honestly, I think this would have been a pretty interesting, like, hidden track. Like, if this record was exclusive to CD, just have it like 10 minutes of silence, then you just hear this catastrophic, annoying slab of audio is really the only way I can describe this train wreck. But yeah, that ends the record. It's actually kind of funny because I recently was going through my email and I found the original time that I sent this song to Thomas. Apparently this song was written and recorded on April 14th, 2014. Interesting little fact. Because I found the original email where I'm sending it to him and saying, like, yeah, this is just a test, like, it's a joke, and yeah, be careful what you send to people. That's all I'm saying, because you might live with it forever. But yeah, that's the last song on the record. That's Under the Influence for you. I know I'm probably forgetting a lot of stuff, like a lot of little tidbits that, I might actually leave in the comments below, so if you guys are interested, then please check the comments of this. But yeah, one thing I guess that I never really talked about were influences. So I can't really speak for Thomas, but I know that at that time, his favorite bands were like Bowling for Soup, Patent Pending. He also loved a lot of the, popular Warped Tour pop punk stuff like Modern Baseball, Real Friends, Story So Far. But then he also liked, like classics like Black Flag or whoever it may be. I think we both like that kind of stuff. As for the hip hop influence, though, he didn't really listen to much hip hop at that time. He would eventually become like a gigantic hip hop fan, but that wasn't until a couple years later. But I think mostly Bloodhound Gang were probably a huge influence. Maybe MC Lars too. Again, it's not really my place to say his influences, but I know my influences vocally were definitely, the Screeching Weasel album, My Brain Hurts. That was one of my most played albums in 9th grade, and I just absolutely loved Dan Vapid's backing vocals on that record. And that, that's a record that, the backing vocals are just so fantastic. Like, that's what I want it to be, especially in Sensitive Nachos on this record. And, who else were some of my influences? Oh, yeah, probably the biggest one was Operation Ivy. We were both Operation Ivy fans, and I always loved Lint's, backing vocals, and even Jesse, honestly. Like, I just loved their vocals together. And, I think they're a very obvious influence on my vocal style on this record. But yeah, those are some of my influences at least. So yeah, when this record came out, I remember my first time listening to it was actually at my dad's house and like being proud of it. But the more I listened to it, the more disappointed I became with it. Yeah, believe it or not, I was actually pretty disappointed in this record at the time. I remember, when Thomas made me do the artwork before going to the Rays game. On my way to the Rays game, I actually listened to the record and like I was proud of it, but I also thought we could do way better. And I really wanted to, like, whatever we were doing next, I really wanted to take more seriously. So I was a little bit disappointed at the time. And, Thomas and I would try to re-record this record for a while after, which I'll get to in the next part when we talk about the next record. But, yeah, now I think it's just perfect the way it is. Because we would eventually try to re-record these songs, but they just came out weird. Like, there's just something about the energy on this recording that just works so perfectly for the songs that I wouldn't really change a thing about it, honestly. But yeah. When this record came out, obviously we gave our friends CDs and we tried to kind of spread the word a little bit. But one thing that we also did was we actually played a live set, but just to ourselves in the Riveridge cafeteria. What happened was on April 30th, Thomas had he had stolen some of the guitars from his guitar class. He stole 2. He gave me one of them, and we went to the lunchroom and we proceeded to play our songs in acoustic format. So we played some of our songs, pretty much all like the punk songs we played, including an Operation Ivy cover of Knowledge, which was great. And we actually posted that. It's on YouTube still to this day. And the funny thing about that is that I remember is that, we were just playing to ourselves. There was nobody like watching us or anything like that. We were just recording ourselves too on Thomas's iPhone. But I remember Thomas made me play bass on the acoustic guitar, which was pretty much just me playing the root notes. And I remember finding that really strange. It's like, why can't I just play the chords? But he's like, no, you have to play bass. probably because he knew that I would be like severely off time. But yeah, I really like that performance. I think it's pretty charming. It's available on YouTube if you guys want to check it out. It's called the Sensitive Nachos Live at the Lunchroom, where we play a lot of these songs. So that was another little thing that we did to kind of like promote this record, I guess, was put that on YouTube and stuff like that. So I wanted to make note of that real quick. And yeah, that's pretty much Under the Influence. Again, if I have anything else that I forgot to mention, I'll definitely leave it in the comments below. But I really like this record, even though it's utterly ridiculous and it's pretty bad. I have such a large soft spot for it that few will be able to understand. But I don't really expect anybody to listen to this record. I do occasionally, probably like every 5 years because it's nostalgic. But yeah, nothing more to say. That was the Sensitive Nachos Under the Influence. Next up is the Sensitive Nachos, A Sensitive Christmas. Let me know if you guys want to hear more. This has been CJ McKenna signing out. See you guys.